Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I got to tell you, I love Tim Ryan. And as I said, Tim, what he did today, that's the reason I'm a registered Democrat. Yes, I voted for Joe Biden. And the reason I voted for him is everything he's been saying. But the passion that you saw out of Tim Ryan took me back to when I was a kid. Growing up in Ohio, you had John Glenn and Howard Metzenbaum with his pink tie. Oh, those were good days. Maybe. Hey, 22's around the corner. Tim Ryan could be the senator along with Sherrod Brown from Ohio and bring back the good old days. And maybe we start moving forward on real progressive legislation. But today, as I said, they began debating the PRO Act. I think this is a vital piece of legislation. And here to share some thoughts on, what it is, how it'll work, and how we get it passed, I've asked Dan Maurer to come talk with us. Dan is the Director of Government Affairs with the Communication Workers of America, CWA. Dan, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me, Rick. Glad to be here.
So when we start, let me get your thoughts on Tim Ryan. I mean, come on, that's a moment.
It was awesome, and I think that's the thing that we need to see. We've been telling people for years. That for Democrats, they sometimes some folks treat labor as a side issue or a constituency, but really the labor movement is really what the core of the working class and what the movement for justice, not just for working people, but for everybody is in this country. And that was exciting to see. And not just him, you saw Ilhan Omar give a great speech. You saw lots of people. It was really exciting to see, last year when we passed it, there was some hemming and hawing. You had a bunch of Democrats vote no, and we really, I think, have seen how the momentum is shifting, and now Democrats are realizing that they can really stand up and speak out in favor of labor, which is really what we want to see.
No, because for me, this is the issue. If we're going to fix all of the other societal problems, for me, it comes back down to kitchen table economics. It comes down to people being able to put food on their table and a roof over their head. If they can't take a day off of work to participate in their democracy, it's over. There's nothing else we're going to be able to do.
That's exactly right. And, we and at CWA, we think really like our whole fixing our democracy and fixing our broken labor law are wrapped hand in hand. When you look at places that have deunionized, deindustrialized, you see folks go back to fear, and they go and can get misled and buy into this cockamamie news and everything. But when you've got a union in place who can really advocate for where workers can advocate for themselves, it allows people to make better decisions, and allows workers, more to the point, to have a voice in the whole legislative process, not just on this, but on voting issues, on health care, you name it. Everything really does better if we have a strong labor movement.
No, what I've always said is, look, the economics part of it is one thing. Making sure that workers share in the wealth that their labor creates is one thing. But the other thing that the Republicans don't want is an empowered citizenry. They don't want people like me who have always had the good fortune of being empowered on the job and then taking that into the public sphere. We want people, and I want people who are going to be passionate about voting and passionate about defending their rights, not just in the regular world, but at work as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, we see this at CWA when we have some workers who our biggest sectors in the call center industry. It's traditionally a low wage industry where even though it's really complicated, really difficult job, people are often, if they don't have a union, they don't get treated fairly. And just every time someone organizes, it's amazing to see the way that they grow and they realize that they have power. It's not just that they have to listen to some buddy wearing a fancy suit and tie who has power. They have power themselves.
Yeah, let's talk about the PRO Act itself, the Protecting the Right to Organize Act. What's in it?
Yeah, this is a bill that's really a great bill because it takes you at every step of the process from when you first sign up and you sign a union card to when you go out If you need to go out and strike to protect your health care, it helps you at every step of the way. I think, in about a third of organizing campaigns, workers are illegally fired right now. On top of that, companies can have these captive audience meetings where they just browbeat and terrify workers. And meanwhile, they can drag on elections for months and months. That's all going to go out the window, banning captive audience meetings, real penalties for companies that break the law, and quick elections. Then it makes sure you can get a first contract. We see that sometimes where workers organize and then they're stuck for years and years. Sometimes they even decertify the union, because what's the point of having a union if you don't have a contract for 6 or 7 years? And then if you need to go on strike right now, that's real tough because, your workers can't have your back with secondary strikes, and because companies can replace you permanently if you go out on strike, and the PRO Act stops that. So when you look at this is really a comprehensive bill that's about building worker power from start to finish, so that workers, and it's not even, frankly, something that I think almost any of this should be controversial, because if you do this, if you pass this bill, all it means is that workers are going to get to make their own decisions free of being or going to make their own decisions free of intimidation by their employer. That's it.
Yep.
And that's really something that was the whole purpose of the National Labor Relations Act when it passed almost 90 years ago, but it hasn't been in practice, certainly not for the last several decades.
No, I mean, for me, the idea of this is what the Employee Free Choice Act should have been, even though we didn't get that, but this is what it should have been. But for me, the idea of just repealing Taft-Hartley and all of the horrible things that they've done since the original intent of the National Labor Relations Act, to me, that's where I want to go back to. I want to go back to a closed shop. I want to go back to the things that built that most prosperous working class in history, like my grandparents did. To me, that's where I want to. That's where I want to be. I'll take this. This is a step in the right direction, but I want to go back to the original intent of the act itself.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this bill is going to be a magic solution, but I do think this will get us a long way there if we pass it. Now, that's obviously, we just had a huge victory a matter of minutes ago in the House, but we've still got a long way to go, and because we really, I think this is a real generational opportunity when you have someone like Chuck Schumer, who's the Senate Majority Leader, who's unequivocally 100% pro-labor. You've got, and Joe Biden, I think the most pro-labor president probably since FDR. And you've got the bill through the House already, thanks to Speaker Pelosi and Chairman Scott and their leadership. When you've got all of that done, that's a time when you can make real big reforms for working people. And so we've got to take advantage.
No, we're in this great,
signed into law.
We're really in this great moment, Dan, where transformational things can happen. I mean, we're in an FDR kind of moment, and Joe Biden, I think, I was concerned. I'll be honest. I was concerned he wasn't going to meet the moment. I'm not as concerned as I was. I'm actually pretty optimistic. The $1.9 trillion rescue plan for me is transformational in thinking of policy in this country, because we're helping people who are desperate and need it, as opposed to giving it to the wealthy and hoping that they'll bail us out. For me, that's transformational. Moving on to a giant infrastructure bill would be incredible, but this PRO Act is a huge part of it. And the question that I come back to in a 50-50 Senate with Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and those folks, how do we get this through?
Yeah, well, I will tell you, we're at a good starting point now compared to where we might have thought we would have been. We only had one Democrat vote no in the House this time, compared to 7 last time. So we're seeing some momentum pick up, and we've already got 45 co-sponsors in the Senate, which is already more than we had last time. So we're making progress. But now, I'm going to be realistic here. It's going to be real hard for us to get 10 Republican senators, much less even one Republican senator support. Frankly, you've got more of them supporting the National Right to Work Act than you do things that really support workers. So that means we've got to get the whole Democratic caucus on board. And it means we've got a couple options. One is, we'll use the rules we have now. Hopefully we can use budget reconciliation. I know It was terrible that the Raise the Wage Act got taken out of that rescue plan because of the budget rules. But I think we have a stronger case because of companies paying penalties to the government. But if we can't do that, what it comes back to is the filibuster, because this is I want to just be a little. I know you have concerns about the filibuster. I want to be even more negative probably than you are. The filibuster has been used for basically two things throughout history. The first thing, for a long time, it's been used to deny civil rights to women, to African Americans, to immigrants, to LGBTQ people. It's been a horrible process.
Think Strom Thurmond there.
Exactly. And the other thing about people like Strom Thurmond is they don't like working people to have a voice either. So it's actually been used for more than a half a century to block labor law reform. Back in 1966, there was a bill to get rid of the Taft-Hartley right to work provisions. That died. Why? Because of a filibuster. Obviously, LBJ would have signed it had it been able to pass. It's a real question of like let's take advantage of every opportunity we have. Let's use the budget process. Let's get it in there if we can. But if we can't, we really gotta have a serious conversation, because we cannot let this moment pass because of some arcane rules.
No, I'm right there with you. And to highlight it also, you go back to the Clinton era. The only reason I voted for Bill Clinton is he said that he was going to pass a strike replacement bill, and it was filibustered by Bob Dole. Which that didn't get through. And then they just stopped. They didn't even bother to go back to it, which is generally what happens when they have these kind of filibusters. They go, oh, hey, we tried, and then they move along. For me, I've been saying for a very long time, what happened to Mr. Smith going to Washington? What happened to Strom Thurmond? Because eventually Strom shut up. He ran out of gas, whatever you want to say, and they moved along. They passed legislation. This is one of those moments where I go, this is a perfect time to go back to a talking filibuster, where if you're that against this, you take the floor and you tell us why, and you continue to tell us why for as long as you've got air in your lungs, and then we vote on the bill.
Yeah, and you saw Joe Manchin saying he might be open to that over the weekend. That's really encouraging. I mean, I think just the 60 votes is just about preserving minority rule, mainly for the wealthy, right? Because with budget reconciliation, you can get things through. You can get tax cuts through with a majority vote. With fast track for trade deals, that offshore jobs, you can have 51 votes and get it done. But when it comes to things that working people care about, you have to really get very creative and very clever to get it in any of these processes. And so really we should get rid of the whole thing. But if we could at least make people talk and stand up and defend why they think companies should be able to browbeat workers and force them to come in and get intimidated, I'd like to hear them say that. If they think that why should a company be able to hire scabs and just kick long time, very good employees off the job for no reason other than their union membership and the fact that they had to go out to protect their rights while they were on strike? Yeah, I'd like to hear them defend that, because we can't just let them wave it off and go into the night.
No, and I would love to hear them defend lower wages, less health care coverage, less retirement coverage, less safe workplaces. I would love to hear them defend all of those things. But sadly, with these arcane rules, we don't get to hear any of that. They just go, no, we're not going to vote for it. And it quietly goes away. This is one of those issues that can't just quietly go away. And I look at someone like Joe Manchin, especially on this issue, because West Virginia is a labor state. There were some bloody labor wars in their state's history. And you had someone like Jim Justice, the governor there, who recently came out and said, hey, we passed right to work and it didn't help us. We went after prevailing wage and that didn't help us. So I'm hoping there's some awakening that these bad ideas, these horrible policies aren't working, and we need to go back to what has been proven to work, and that is ensuring that people have a voice on the job.
I hope so. And I think, if anything, the last year really should have showed us that, right? Like, you look at all the people who had to go to work without PPE, who couldn't, who couldn't get sick days, who maybe if they were getting laid off or furloughed, had no control over that. and then they tried to organize, and they realized that even in a time of a deadly pandemic, something that's never happened like this in a whole century, and even then companies are putting profits over people. No, we've got to reinvigorate the labor movement. And so I really hope people on Capitol Hill are recognizing that. I know some of our other allies are. We've had great support in the product from the environmental community, for example, from the Sunrise Movement and all these people who are saying, you know what, if we want to really have a sustainable future, workers have to be able to have a voice.
Yep.
And that's exciting to hear them, because they work mostly on environmental issues, and they're saying, we understand workers need a voice in the job. And if everyone comes to understand that in Congress, we'll be in a much better place.
No, and it's going to come down to obviously the Senate, because it will. I think it'll pass the House, and it's going to come down to those handful of senators and making the right choices. And for me, the idea of moving to that talking filibuster is the way to go. So, last line of questioning I've got for you. Who do we pressure? Who are you identifying as the potential movables?
Well, there's 5 Democrats or independents who aren't co-sponsoring the bill, and to be frank about it, we got to get all of them, because we need all 50. So it's both the senators from Arizona, it's Senator Manchin, as you mentioned, Senator Warner from Virginia, and Senator Angus King from Maine. And so they've all got to hear from you. I think, in fact, for people, even if you're not from one of those states, your senators got to hear from you, because we need them talking internally in the caucus, saying we need folks that saying, look, people are up my ass telling me you got to pass this. So if you don't have the action item already, go to cwa.org/PROACT. That's cwa.org/PROACT. You can write your senators there, and then make sure to give them a call, burn up their phone lines, burn up their social media, all of it, because there's going to be a big corporate fight back, and we need to really have all our folks engaged.
No, this is an incredible moment. This is a moment where this is where we need people to come out of the woodwork and loudly and often contact their representatives, especially the 5 that you point out, the 2 from Arizona, Simina and Kelly, Warner from Virginia, Manchin from West Virginia, and Angus King, the independent from Maine. Dan, I appreciate the time. Great talking with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, brother.
Good stuff, Dan Maurer. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.